Now, what just happened in Super Bowl 60? The final score was 29-13 Seattle, and what was a demolishing performance by Seattle to New England's offense and also to their defense. But I would say more their offense, led by the dark side of Seattle, that incredible defense that we haven't seen put up that much of a dominant performance in the Super Bowl, you could argue, since the New England Patriots did to the Los Angeles Rams a couple of years ago, when Bill Belichick famously was able to stop that incredible Los Angeles Rams offense. But what happened in the Super Bowl, and why was this such a lopsided game? Well, it really goes back to what both teams you have in the Super Bowl and what has been their season. And you can really look now that it's over to the point where New England is probably one of the worst teams we have ever seen make a Super Bowl. That's right. Not only do they have one of the easiest, not the easiest schedules in the history of the NFL, really, but they also had probably the easiest postseason schedule ever due to the teams they've played. And even along that run, offensively, New England was still terrible. And not just that, but they were record breaking bad on offense. Not only now do they set the new sack record for an offense in the postseason, but they also set the most fumbles for a record in the postseason now. Both are owned by this New England Patriots team, this New England Patriots offense, and a big reason because of that is because of how good Seattle's defense was. I believe they made it 6 sacks and 2 fumbles on the game. Just incredible, and I would say a lot of those sacks had to do with how bad the offensive line was for the Patriots. But the problem was, is it wasn't just their offensive line that was bad. Everything was bad. I mean, Drake May probably played his worst game we've seen from him in a very long time, if ever. So that's part of it too. And a lot of the reason was because his offensive line couldn't hold protection. And a lot of the sacks as well, in addition to that, were coverage sacks, meaning that the defense behind the front four of Seattle was so good that nothing was open and Drake May couldn't really do anything. And the one thing we did think might happen was he would be able to rush. For instance, when there's a coverage sack and sometimes the front four doesn't get to Drake, he might be able to take off and run, which is what we saw a lot in that Denver game, but he really wasn't able to do it much. And Seattle played pretty good lane protection just in case if he took off, which is why some of those sacks were only for about 2 or 3 yards rather than your typical 5 or 6 yard sack that you might see when he's back in the pocket 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage trying to pass rather than take off and run. Now, paired with Seattle's incredible defense, you had really good game management skills by Seattle on all fronts, mainly their offense and special teams, because Seattle put this game away early by playing it to how the game was meant to be played. And how that was be extremely careful offensively. And there's probably not going to be enough credit that goes to Sam Darnold for how good he was at not making negative plays. He avoided sacks effectively in this game. He also got rid of the ball when he needed to. There was one play where he double pumped and it almost looked like it could have been bad, but that double pump did evade a New England defender who was in his face. So really a lot of credit needs to go to Sam Darnold for being able to not have the huge negative play to lose this game. You could almost say on offense for Seattle, at least in the passing game, they did as much to not lose this game rather than they did to win the game, and which is what you saw how New England was able to win all the games in the playoffs leading up to this, was that they made the opposing quarterback lose the game, and Sam Darnold was not doing that, which is a big reason why they were able to be so far ahead in this game, was because they didn't have the negative play on offense. And then you have to give a ton of credit to Seattle's rushing game, specifically with Kenneth Walker, who happened to be the Super Bowl MVP, deservingly so because he had a couple incredible runs. It looked like he was going to add to that at the end there with the pretty much go-ahead, put-away touchdown run. It was called back for a holding. It was most definitely a holding call. But Kenneth Walker was super, super good in this game, especially when you knew for a fact that they weren't going to have a two-headed monster they relied on the whole season. It was just going to be him, and you put the team on his back. Maybe he's not like Greg Jennings in that one game of Madden, but he was really, really solid to have Seattle have a dominant win. And again, this game is accented front and center was the defense. To keep them to 0 points for the first 3 quarters was incredible. And then obviously in that fourth quarter, they finally got some momentum, but really the bend don't break mentality was how you had to approach this one. And that is what they did. And they did it to an incredibly high level. I would argue there was a point in this fourth quarter where the Patriots did get some momentum. I believe the score was 7-19. and you had a chance by New England really to come back because Seattle had to punt. New England got the ball back, they were driving, and then Drake May throws an incredibly ridiculous interception. I believe it was on the broadcast too, it was pointed out where there was a final moment there where you could see that they finally got some rhythm offensively. And that's where then Drake May literally on the next play throws an interception. Now, that one touchdown to Matt Collins was pretty good. And if you think about it, that's the one weak spot on Seattle's defense, if you think about it, is Tariq Woolen. That's what happened in the Rams game where he got targeted a ton at the end. And that's what happened in this one. It was a go ball and he caught it for a touchdown, which made the game a little bit closer. And they scored so fast, you thought, okay, where has this been the whole game? But it's because Seattle's been really good defensively. Now, how do these two teams go forward, you could say, from this? New England has a ton of work to do on pretty much every side of the ball because defensively, they weren't able to get it done in the end, even though obviously they were put in an extremely tough position. But you could say there were some breakdowns coverage-wise by New England that led to Seattle, especially getting the one touchdown. But also they were unable to stop the running game, which is something that was a strength of theirs more during the season. And then, of course, offensively is where the problems are, and it has to do with the offensive line first and foremost. They need to go out in the draft or in free agency and get some tackles. Even though Will Campbell is their left tackle that they drafted at 4th overall, he is not a good left tackle in the league. He's been shown game in and game out how bad he is, and he's been beat. Now, obviously, it is an extremely tough position in the league, and for a rookie to go straight into it like that, yeah, that's not easy to do. But there are definitely a couple different characteristics in his game that are flawed. Now, sure, if he can go in the off season, get all those under wrap, you can say, and turn into an elite left tackle, that's great. And New England doesn't have to worry about it. And I'm sure he's got the tools in the bag to be able to go out and work on those things. But at the very worst, I think for New England, they might want to move him to a guard position, keep him after either a left guard or a right guard, and then go get a tackle. Because part of the problem with Will Campbell is his size. He is a little bit undersized, and you could see that in this game. He got bull rushed on several occasions, and he couldn't really handle it. And you could see early on in the game, too, Drake May was peeking over to his blind side, meaning he was looking over to the left side of the offensive line. That's Will Campbell's spot because he knows that that is a weak point on the offensive line. And if you don't have the trust of your quarterback, how can you be an effective offense? So that's 1 point for the Patriots to go forward. Now, again, they're still an incredibly talented team with a really good quarterback who had a bad day. They have a good offense around Drake May, weapons-wise, and their defense is really solid. So they have the pieces of the puzzle there, and they got lucky in the playoffs. They're just, again, they're not there, and they're not exactly, or you could say on any level, what Seattle's working with, which is why, in my opinion, with how good this defense is for Seattle and how they still have the willpower around it, they're going to be a multi-championship team. That's right. This is the start of the dark side dynasty for Seattle. There's no other way to put it. This defense is so good. If they can keep the core around them, which I think they should because they're all real young, the core, then they should be a multiple championship roster team on the defensive side. And really, we've seen it on the offense at this point where there's not much they can do right or wrong to really affect how good that defense is. It's complementary to the defense, and that's all you need to keep them going. Now, sure, you could lose at the end of the day to one of those other teams that gets hot at the right point, but I think ultimately this is a Seattle bunch that is on the verge of a dynasty. And you saw it 12 years ago where they beat Peyton Manning in that offense so bad, they went back to the Super Bowl, and then they had a heartbreak play that that shattered the culture in Seattle, which led to them never winning again. So unless another kind of culture-shattering play happens like that in this next season, I don't see how Seattle can be stopped, to be honest. So we'll wait and see on what the future holds for the Seattle Seahawks. But man, this is one of the best teams I've seen in a long time from the defensive end. The offense, again, they can still be better, and they know that. But this is one of the best defensive teams we've seen in a long time. And credit to John Schneider, the general manager for Seattle, because this is the second time around where he's built the best defense in football that has led to a championship in Seattle. If he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, I don't know what is. And we just saw that with Bill Belichick, so we can really question the Hall of Fame in that respect. But John Schneider has to be one of the best general managers, one of the best executives in football ever to exist in this league, just because of how good he's been at how many different intervals. I mean, this is some Sam Presti type stuff you see with the NBA, with not the Warriors, with the Oklahoma City Thunder and how they've been able to build several different super squads. That's what Seattle's doing right now. So credit where credit's due there to Seattle, who are Super Bowl 60 champions and who beat badly the New England Patriots 29-13 in Super Bowl 60 in Santa Clara. That is the Super Bowl. That's the football season. Hope you enjoyed. This was a very interesting playoffs. Definitely did not see Seattle over New England in the Super Bowl going into it, but you never know, and that's what happens. So that's how you have it for these two playoff teams, these two playoff sides. And we'll go into next season with Seattle hosting opening night on that Thursday in September when we start the quest for Super Bowl 61. But a lot to happen between now and then, as the Combine will be at the end of the month, the draft will be in April, and then you have a lot of ways to go till opening night, which will be in Seattle. Like and follow for more.